Now we're going to turn to Alabama, where a federal judge is set to rule on a request by 3 same-sex couples to try and force a probate court judge to issue marriage licenses in one county. Now, this all comes amid controversy over same-sex marriages across the state of Alabama. Many probate judges, they're refusing to issue licenses to those couples after the state's Chief Justice, Roy Moore, remember him, told them that they didn't have to do this. This all despite the fact that a federal judge here overturned Alabama's ban on same-sex marriages just last month, and the U.S. Supreme Court refused to stop gay marriages from taking place in the state on Monday. Officials say only 22 of Alabama's 67 counties are issuing marriage licenses to gay couples. Now, we talked about this last night with our legal panel as to how the Chief Justice could do this, but the Supreme Court is already giving signals here that they're going to resolve this once and for all, not just for Alabama, but for everybody. Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg says she believes that America is ready to see same-sex marriages legalized in every state, saying, I think that as more and more people come out and said, this is not who I am, the rest of us recognized that they are one of us. Ginsburg also stated that the change in people's attitudes on the issue has been enormous. I'll get to in a minute what Justice Thomas said, and yes, he did say something, albeit not orally. But the point is, there seems to be a telegraph from the Supreme Court that they're not only going to rule on this, but they look, at least if you read between the lines, that they're going to come down on the side of legalizing this. However, in Alabama, to me, Richard, what the Chief Justice did harkens back to an ugly chapter where federal government be damned, even courts be damned. He's going to do whatever he thinks is right here.
It's not an ugly chapter. It's an ugly history, and it's not one chapter. The notion of states' rights, which for those of you who want to go onto HuffPost and see my blog on this, it's an excuse for racist and homophobic policies.
Amen.
It's no.
But amen. I'm glad you said it and I didn't have to say it.
Well, the trick is the Republicans sitting there silently.
He'll say it too.
I'll wait for you to get done.
He'll give you a wink, wink, and a nod.
It's the first time you've waited in a long time.
Richard, Barrister Brodsky, it's also really dangerous when a Chief Justice decides, I don't care what they all said. Probate courts do whatever you want. Don't listen.
The notion that the Republican right stands for law and order has just never been true. The notion that states' rights is some independent principle that can be debated on its merits is an academic truth. You can debate it on its merits, and both sides have. But when it comes down to it, they're covering up these social policies that are inhuman and ought to vanish from the face of the earth.
I would say states do have rights that aren't covered by the Constitution, and they can give their people more rights than what the federal Constitution has provided. That said, look, the Constitution also says that the federal government rules supreme. And when the federal government says that something is wrong, hence we have a lot of Roe v. Wade, Brown versus Board of Education, whichever you want to say, then that is the law of the land. So I totally disagree with the state judge and the probate judge in this matter. They need to follow the law. But it's not up to them to follow law. It's up to the governor who executes the law to do that. And so that's what I think we need to see next is the governor of Alabama.
But it is scary, don't you think? When a federal court says X and Chief Justice says, never mind. And by the way, don't only not do what you want, I'm telling you guys, don't do it. That's my recommendation.
It's not going to be for long. I mean,
but you're right, but still, that's dangerous.
And keep in mind, this is the same Chief Justice who refused to get rid of the 10 Commandments outside the state Supreme Court and made a bunch of headlines that way before he lost his job. He's going to be forced by the federal government to...
he's not going to be forced by anybody.
Well, he is.
What do you mean forced?
They're going to go to court and they're going to force him to...
Well, they went to court and they won and they didn't...
But they're going to force him to issue a new ruling to the probate judges.
Go back and read George Wallace's speech declaring he was running for president in 1967 or 68. It echoes, A, exactly what this guy's saying, and B, the themes that are now mainstream Republican Party message. Activist judges, socialists in the government, the race, separation of the races, the primacy of Christianity. It's just enough already.
And
just
George Wallace
was a Democrat. George Wallace was a Democrat, not a Republican.
Me personally, I wouldn't spend 2 minutes reading George Wallace's presidential speech.
Well, you should.
Why?
Because,
why would I?
Because it will establish to you quite clearly that those views, which are viewed as crazy right-wing, are now the mainstream views of the Republican Party.
I didn't say that
George
they were
Wallace
crazy.
is Democrat, right?
I mean, Richard, the bottom line is, if you want to see what this judge is doing in Alabama, or go to a movie right now. It's called Selma. The country's already been down this road in terms of the country was moving in terms of civil rights, and Alabama said, over my dead body. They're saying the same thing now. They're going to come along kicking and screaming, and Andrew is right. The federal government is going to find ways, whether it be fines or whatever, but Alabama will come along and grant these licenses.
Moore's going to be reelected. I mean, what he's doing is going to be popular among the voters in Alabama, and he's going to guarantee his reelection.
I'm curious, by the way, if we hear from the Justice Department here. I'm curious if Mr. Holder makes his voice heard in any way, or if they just say, let's wait till the Supreme Court as early as June decides this thing. That'll be interesting.
I think the legal tactic that's going to be taken here is that those judges that don't want to follow the federal ruling will become part of the litigation of the enforcement. And rather than, I think some of them, rather than face a legal battle, will say, you know what, I'm just going to do it. Because it's not all of the probate judges.
And some of them won't.
Right, and then they'll be part of litigation.
And I think this is something you'll hear from Obama maybe instead of Holder. I mean, this is something that I think Obama would handle himself with Holder by his side.
And the next step is to enforce the judge's order right now, and those that won't enforce it will become part of that litigation to enforce the federal judge's order. And they'll have to, and then if they don't do it, then they'll have to first.
I'm going to tell your Republican colleagues what you just said.
Let me
I'm going to tell.
We asked last night. I had the legal panel on us, and we got into this subject, and we asked you at home if you believed that the U.S. Supreme Court should legalize same-sex marriage across the country. Got overwhelming response, literally close to 200 comments here, and I got to read a few of them. Here's a look at first from Ken saying, yes, I'm nearly 70 years old. I don't want others to have to wait as long as I have. Michelle says, there's 2 no's on here, so why no? You cannot cite religion. If we based laws on religion, divorce would be illegal as well. So why eating pork? Religion and the law are 2 different things. Okay. Justin says same-sex marriage should not be legalized, writing no, period. It's ungodly, and we were once a nation under God, and we are straying from him by far. And our country is going to hell. Don't complain about our government if you say yes to same-sex marriage. Sounds like he agrees with the Albany, Alabama, Chief Justice. John says, if it's okay,
you just can't stop.
If it's okay for some and not others, then that's not equality. And in a country that is supposedly based on freedom, we sure do like keeping others down that don't agree with us. And that, my friends, is called hypocrisy. All right. We are going to jump to a quick commercial break. When we come back, we're going to open up the mailbag. A couple interesting subjects here for you to weigh in on. We'll be right back. But first, a look at our still photo of the day. It's Vice President Joe Biden awarding John Capano the Medal of Valor yesterday. Capano accepted the medal in honor of his late father, Senior Special Agent John Capano of Long Island, who lost his life while pursuing a drugstore robber back in 2011. We'll be right back.